These will splice in.
When Linette was taken to the jail, the detective said to her, "I guess you got dressed up for nothing." And to me, a remark like that is totally uncalled for. I mean, we didn't do a lot of time in jail, but we went to jail. And having worked in a prison, I knew what to expect, and everything. But here we were both paraded in chains into the courtroom over this case.
Was a lot of media down there?
No, actually there wasn't. But the media did pick it up, and people on forums for different newspapers were calling us murderers. The first response to people that read stories like this, because they reported that there were multiple blunt traumas to the head, the immediate response of the public is, that they're murderers, they need to be punished, how can you do that to a child? When in reality, there are people who are responsible for Jessica's death. And if you want to include people that make mistakes, I mean, we can understand a mistake, but we're being criminally prosecuted for mistakes that other people aren't being held accountable for.
Now, a lot of the documents you're showing me, we're trying to put up on the website so people can read them. And they can see that...
Oh, should we?
We can.
I have one website that has it that's already on standby. We have got our story out. I've just come to the conclusion that the legal system, the wheels of justice may move slow, but you get so slow that you can't count on it no more. We're losing our house. We owe insurance on the house. We're 4 months back, probably by now close to $4,000 in debt just for our house. So
I get the impression from what I read about your case, what you told me, and what I can read in black and white, is that DCS is desperately hanging on to get something on you. Something.
It seems, but now it's shifted to the prosecutor, because DCS actually gave us the girls back. And that's what I think we were talking about earlier, is we went into this negotiation. One of the things they clearly told us, and we insisted on, is nobody involved in our case from DCS would come into our home. They made one exception that they said would be escorted with a person who wasn't familiar with our case. Since then, and I believe tomorrow, this caseworker has come in with her boss, who is listed as a witness against us. That's a violation of the agreement. The reason I'm going to allow for that is because it wasn't written into the court order. So I'm not going to argue it. They want to come in, they can come in. But the agreement was they didn't do any searches or anything else. Now they come in, they look in the cabinets, they go in the girls' room. That, to me, my definition is a security skills. My definition as a security skills instructor is a search. You're going into someone's property looking. That's a search. So our house is being searched on a monthly basis by DCS.
So they're breaking their own rules.
Well, they broke our agreement. Now, I'll say it's not excessive. They're not going in our bedroom and going through our drawers. They're not getting anything like that. But still, it is technically they're searching our house when they come in. And a person involved in our case is accompanying the caseworker, and we agreed not to do that. But like I said, it's not written in the court order, so I'm not going to fuss about it. Another deal we had was that after the prosecutor did her deposition, we'd have supervised visitation that first week. After that, we would be given unlimited amount of time with visitation, overnight visits with the girls at the discretion of the counselor, and the girls would be returned to us on August 3rd. The first week, we had supervised visitation. After that Saturday, we had another supervised visit and agreed with the supervisor that was our last visit. The next week, we were not informed of any visitations. Nobody made any effort to arrange visitation that was unsupervised, or visitation at all. So I called the original visitation supervisor. I said, "Do you know anything about another visit?" She said, "No, as far as I know, we both agreed that we're not working together anymore, that this part is over." And the rumor circulated among the attorneys communicating with DCS and everything that we had refused a visit. They said we refused one of the visits. We were never offered a visit. That entire week was disrupted. The therapist who was on the phone when the agreement was made was told by attorneys that he won't identify that the return date, contrary to the court order, was at his discretion. He set out a 2-week plan from the end of the first week, and DCS maintained custody. Now, we didn't know that was going to happen. What happened was the 3 days before the return date, their attorney was assuring our attorneys that the girls would be returned home. And at the last minute, Linette called asking where to pick the girls up. She was given the DCS attorney at the office, and he said, well, I know who put you up to this, insinuating that her lawyers had made her call, which is whatever, fine. But then he said, when Linette said that she wanted to know where to pick up the girls, he said that's not an option. Now, he had been assuring everybody, and we've been going to the very last day expecting to get the girls. Her lawyer, local lawyer, called. The receptionist there said he has nothing to say to you, and that's a quote from her lawyer, that's what he was told. And he shortly after that received an email saying that the girls would not be returning home, and that that we would have to wait till October when they had a permanency hearing. Try and move past what happened all right then. We had agreed to psychological evaluations. The agreement was that we would provide one. If we couldn't afford it or find finances for it, DCS would provide us with a list of all their providers in the state. That way we could randomly pick somebody who's not prepped about the case by DCS, and we would pick someone. We were given 30 days to do that. It was 2 weeks after that hearing that DCS made an appointment for us with a psychologist of their choice, scheduled it for all day on the day that the girls were scheduled to return home, which to me was an obvious way of interfering with their return. And it also conflicted with one of the scheduled visits that was put together, or events that was put together with the therapist. So it was deliberate sabotage. I'm just going to read a little part of what her lawyer wrote to their lawyer. He said, I'm sure that I've been lied to before during my legal career. As I'm sure, he says, no one has been bold enough to do it when he or she knew I would find it out. Your interpretation of the court order is laughable, and as I'm sure you already know, it is not at all what we agreed to in open court. It is not your lack of willingness to follow our agreement, or your unexplainable audacity to think you have the power to change a court order with an email that has me concerned. Those issues can be addressed in my contempt motion. And there is a motion of contempt against DCS for what they did here, and it's all documented. He goes on to say some other things. You need not discuss anything with me outside of court, as nothing you tell me can be trusted. You can explain your behavior to the disciplinary commission, since that is who I intend to address it with. You may be certain that your client, it may be entertaining to your client to mislead me and my client until the final hour, then flex your presupposed authority over this case, but you hold a license to practice law and are bound by ethical rules that they are not. It would serve you well to remember that in the future. And that was before the motion of contempt.
Now, how much was he asking DCS to be fined for every day?
We don't really expect that, but they did ask for sanctions of $10,000 a day for every day the girls weren't returned. When the judge came back from vacation, he enforced the court order, and the girls were returned. In fact, we dropped them off in Plymouth, and when we got home, it was shortly after that we got a call from our lawyer in Seattle, and she said, go back to the gas station in Plymouth, you're picking up the girls, you're coming home. And
it's a total shock.
Yeah. It was a week past.
Once again, now even with the lawyers, do unnecessary behaviors.
They had to wait for the judge to come back from vacation. Our lawyer, I believe, may have been on the road back to Seattle. Her lawyer was on vacation, I think, at some island in the Caribbean, and the girl's lawyer was in Africa on vacation. And these people all had...
And we're the only ones that don't get a vacation.
They had a phone conference, and the judge, I can't say the judge has been totally unfair, and I'm not trying to say he's been totally unfair. In this case, he made it very clear when DCS, I believe, ordered or offered to bring him in the next day or some other day, and he said, well, what's wrong with tonight, like 6 o'clock, which was only an hour and a half away. So I feel like he was taking a stance right there and saying, do it now. This is what the court order said. Now, whether or not him being a past DCS lawyer, whether or not he would have actually sanctioned DCS, I don't know, but he has stepped out of the case since that time.
It sounds very wise.
Yeah, and I mentioned that there were 3 things that I put on the sheet for you that were grounds for asking him to recuse himself. One was that the DCS director, county director, had called him saying that the girls didn't want to come home. That was a bold-faced lie, and it was ex parte communication with the court, one-sided communication with the court. And it's very clear. The girls, the supervisor who did our visitation has said it's always been clear the girls wanted to go home. They, after the motion of contempt, I've heard, and again, this is hearsay because I don't know this, he approached the judge to talk to him after the motion of contempt. What I do know is my lawyer witnessed the prosecutor talking to the judge about how, about our lawyer from Seattle's qualifications and technicalities that may rule her out of the case. We've been told repeatedly that if it hadn't been for her intervention and coming into the case, that we'd have been convicted of a homicide. At one time, the judge even kind of threw out there in a statement that I don't know that this isn't a capital murder case. I had to explain to my wife that what they're talking about is strapping us to a table. I got a friend who's part of the execution team. You know, I know what executions are about. And that's what, I don't care if it was a flippant remark, it got back to us. We were looking at life in prison or possibly execution. If they'd have ruled that it was a fatal beating, someone that beats a 14-year-old girl to death, there's a good chance you're going to be looking at a capital crime. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, I agree that if you just had a standard Indiana public defender, you guys would be the chair right now.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have gone to all this effort.
Now I can say too that her lawyer that was appointed by the courts, and I was questioned once, why did you have to have another lawyer? Well, our lawyer was in a different county. He was out of circulation. I think that's when the capital murder thing came up, that is he qualified? He's not on the rotation for public defenders, and they assigned Linette, who I personally believe is probably the best lawyer in the county. And I was assigned a lawyer also that has really surprised me in some of the things he's done. And I really like the lawyers we got. But typically, a public defender is going to know this is a losing battle, and they're going to look for a plea. They're not going to, from everything I've read, you're going to be real lucky to find one who's going to put himself out there and actually try and save you from everything. We agreed when they first said it was consistent with a homicide. We agreed right then we would never confess or plead to a crime we didn't commit. It was never going to happen. And we knew that meant that we could be separated for the rest of our lives and have to get permission to write each other. But we just said no matter what. And periodically throughout these events, I know Linette's asked me, are we still not pleading? And I'll say, no, we're not pleading. You know, you still feel that way? Yep. You know, we're not going to plead to this.
Okay. Let's go ahead and close this off by bringing this up to date.
Okay.
What's going on today?
Okay, today we still have appointments with the therapist. I can do this quick. We did have the records of the girls reviewed by a psychologist who specializes in child psychology and evaluations. We are, from what we understand, they're saying the Class B against Linette is dropped. They don't have a homicide. They don't have the skull fracture. The bleeding wasn't out of proportion with Coumadin. Now they're saying that because Jessica had a pre-existing condition and that we witnessed bleeding, which was from the lip, and that, well, let's see, because we knew the pre-existing condition and didn't get medical attention, that we're guilty of a Class D felony. And as I told you earlier, the only symptoms before she died was that her cramping went away and she still had a headache. She was in a menstrual period. That's been confirmed by a transcript of a tape of the children's interview at DCS and the prosecutor's office on the night Jessica died. Caitlin is heard saying on the tape she told Mom that she had a headache and that's all. And Tabitha confirmed that she gave her a pain reliever and she went to sleep. This psychologist, after reviewing the documents, said, I'm concerned with evidence in the progress report suggesting the children's therapists have felt duty-bound to investigate Jessica's death, to supply information to the children about what may have happened, and to report their findings to DCS. This is improper and can have adverse effects, some of which may have already occurred. I've highlighted the really important parts. If they are not allowed, if he's talking about protocols for forensic examinations, if they are not followed, the information that is obtained may be inaccurate, may influence subsequent interviews and interrogations. Using therapists to obtain information for a legal case is contrary to the purpose of therapy and may shut down the child's willingness to talk. Now that part right there, may shut down the child's willingness to talk. We're experiencing that with Caitlin right now. She's been interviewed over and over. She's been tested over and over. And remember, I told you that the case plan called for them being housed until the investigation was over, and it became therapeutic foster care. He goes on to say, instead, the children have been caught between their parents, whom they wish to return, and DCS, which apparently wishes to obtain information to use from them to use against their parents. And that pretty much sums up what he said. Now, since then, we still go to the same therapist who he's referring to, who was involved in doing an investigation, using therapy to do an investigation. We had a meeting with him in which Caitlin was not willing to talk. She just didn't want to talk, which isn't odd for an 11-year-old to me. He wrote a report to DCS saying she's acting like a 5-year-old who is shy. Caitlin tried to cry, but to this counselor, this was more of a way to manipulate her mother. Then he says that Linette and I had said we don't feel like parents to these girls. That was never said. Linette acknowledged that there had been a gap in our relationship and that she didn't really, we can't just walk in and feel like a parent again. She was only saying that this gap has created a problem. She didn't say they're not her kids or that she doesn't want them. I never said anything to that effect. It says here that they both have expressed is not feeling like they are really parents to these girls. We didn't say that. He refers to Caitlin as a powerful manipulator regarding her symptoms of depression, which in my opinion seem to be getting worse. This was after about a half-hour meeting at a library room. He's saying all these things. Now, I picked up Tabitha and Caitlin from their lawyer's office. The one thing her lawyer said is, I've never seen Caitlin joking and smiling until today. And this is after she was returned home.
The friend, I have to tell you that we've been together almost the last 3 hours. And, ma'am, you're more submissive type, not a bossy type by any means.
Oh, well, she's being good.
Wives would like to let us husbands know that they're really in charge.
One of the things when we talk about our character and things. One important thing I want to get in here too is DCS in making this agreement succeeded in doing one thing. That was eliminating all our experts from testifying, the coroner from testifying, the ER doctor from testifying. They prevented 3 DOC first aid instructors who are colleagues of mine from testifying, 2 teachers from Culver School who were going to testify about Linette's character. They prevented all that testimony. Then they reneged on every deal they made with us to reunite us with the girls. The thing with therapy and everything right now, we're rolling with the punches. We made agreements with them, and we're fulfilling those agreements. We're going to the therapist. We've asked that we get a female therapist or somebody different because there is a conflict here. Caitlin was told by the therapist that the only reason she's home is because she made promises to him. And even at least one person in DCS has acknowledged that it had nothing to do with Caitlin's return. She was returned home because, first off, they had no probable cause. Second, the court ordered it. We negotiated her return. That's putting a lot of weight on an 11-year-old girl who's been taken from her family for 9 months. So the situation we're in right now, since the judge has stepped down, our case has been turned over to 4 different judges in 3 different counties to handle the 2 Chins cases and our criminal cases. But what DCS has also done in the midst of all that, we're not denying that there were ever arguments in the family. We're not denying that anything that we didn't have regular troubles in our relationships. I'm a stepfather. I've never had children until I got married. We had basically the same type things that any combined family has. The same problems and misunderstandings with teenagers that anybody else has. They've manipulated our lives and our characters to reflect something they want it to be. And to give you an example, one of the issues they had was whether or not we have cats in the house. After Jessica died, we bought 2 Siamese cats about 4 months later. We had cats when we bought the house that were in the backyard. It's been insinuated that we were lying about not getting the cats till April. The cats that were strays weren't ours.
They were here.
But you see what I mean? You see what I mean? It's like if we say we didn't have cats when Jessica was alive. Oh no, but they heard that there was a cat. Well, that was an outside cat, and it's like this little light bulb that they found some mystery solved that we're lying about something, but they don't take the time to get the facts. What they've done is started off with a conclusion. And when you start with a conclusion, it's very easy to find the facts you need. And that's essentially what they do.
It was once said that the judicial system is a crucible of truth. You boil away the fact, and what you're left with is the truth. But in this case, they don't want to hear from your experts. They don't want to listen. The court system doesn't want to look for the truth. DCF is trying to find some string to hold you on. You have a prosecutor who's going to have another attorney file disciplinary charges against him.
Oh, you mean that was not the prosecutor, that was the DCS lawyer.
So you can have one lawyer filing charges against another lawyer for lack of ethics, which is almost unheard of in Indiana.
Yeah.
And
well, the judge felt that there's going to be a letter going out to everybody, all the attorneys, the bar in Indiana, about ex parte communication because of our case.
I mean, now we're down. Each one of us has different judges now.
Yeah,
I remain in Passaic County.
Mine's being heard by a judge in Cass County. The girls' Chins case will be heard by 2 different judges in Jasper County. And it's what we asked for, so, and we're going to try and unite our cases. I have a motion to dismiss on November 5th. If not, we go to trial sometime in January and February, and it's a criminal trial.
How long have you been out of work because of this disaster?
April 21st, April 24th or 6th, something like that. And my employers faxed to the jail my suspension. When I was released, I was told I was suspended. I kind of assumed that was going to happen anyway. They reported in the paper that the charges had been fully investigated. All that really meant is they fully investigated the fact that there was a charge. Mm-hmm. My department has never acknowledged that I was guilty of neglect or homicide or anything else. And if this ends, I'm still welcome back. I'm on a manning table for another prison since mine is closed during this. So I have a job, and someone in DCS was saying, well, why isn't Roman working? Well, if I got the last raise, I'd be making over $20 an hour. The kids would have full insurance. We wouldn't have to be taking state resources that other people need. And that was one of the problems with DCS when they first contacted us, was we tried telling them, we don't need you. We don't need you. But they didn't like that answer. Now, I think I mentioned that I did write a letter to the governor's office, a complaint letter.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and I didn't bring that up. But I basically spelled out to him that this contact was unprofessional. And the director in this county, when she was asked by someone at central office, the person at central office said, well, from what I see of the letter, he's mainly just talking about insensitivity and professionalism. And she says, this stepfather refuses to get badly needed cardiac surgery. And as I said before, she had the surgery 10 years before. In discovery, we found a lot of things that were, I guess I don't hesitate to just say they're lies. They knew these things weren't true. And if they didn't know, all they had to do was ask. If they wanted to see the insurance cards on the kids, they would know they were fully insured.
I know you contact the governor. What are the
no response?
Politician, no response. And Ms. Daniels, we must remind people, has an open door policy, which doesn't seem to open.
My letter was referred directly to James Payne. He responded fairly politically. He did say he was sorry that it didn't, go good the first meeting, but then of course, a political response is we have the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
And I wrote him back and actually said, I think that her doctor will confirm that your services weren't needed. So I reconfirmed that we don't need you. And that's been what I've been trying to say all along. We just don't need them.
What other politicians have you touched base with?
I sent one to a Indiana representative on Capitol Hill. I never heard, that was my original letter. His secretary, I think, emailed me back and I think talked to me on the phone. That was the end of that. Mm-hmm. Not too long ago, I sent an email to a state representative, in state government. It's kind of early to tell if I'd get a response. My first letter that I wrote regarding DCS was sent to a state representative, a local representative, and I got the response from James Payne, but I didn't get a response from that representative. I think they probably have the attitude like a lot of people do in law enforcement. If they're being charged, they must have done something.
Yeah.
And people really don't want to hear stories like this.
Is there anybody in DCS that actually did the job? It sounds to me like...
Well, I got to say no, because they assumed we were guilty, and when it was passed on to another caseworker to handle the foster care and treatment, we weren't given case plans initially until we really got, our lawyer from Seattle came out, we really started pressing issues. We weren't invited into any of the treatment plans or anything. There was no effort for relative placement. Her mother took fingerprints 3 times. They kept mysteriously smudging, so she was never able to get custody. So, no, I can't say that I can put my finger on anybody that actually did their job, except for one caseworker that I never met that I think periodically went to foster care and took a picture of the girls. That's not a hard job to pull off.
No. Now, the elections are coming up. Who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for Mitch again?
I'm not going to touch that because this is obviously political.
Yes.
I don't want to make any enemies.
And you're in the state position, so I can understand that.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave that one alone. But as far as who I vote for, oddly enough, I think I voted a straight ticket, and I believe I voted for this prosecutor. I believe I did. And I regret it. She's had opportunity, and DCS has had opportunity for nearly a year now to say, oh, we didn't know the fracture was post-mortem. New evidence has come to light. Release the charges, give the kids back. They've had that opportunity. They could have said, Coumadin overdose. Okay, we didn't know that. New evidence has come to light, but they've never done it. They continually find some new accusation against us to further their cause. And if I'm asked, do I believe it's political? Do I think they're trying to save face? Do I think it's about winning more than justice right now? That's exactly what I believe. I believe that this has become a game to them, and they're going to do whatever they can to vilify us, probably in the press, which they've already done. They're going to look for any little fault. I'm expecting them to remind the court that I was put in the hallway in 3rd grade. What are they going to dig for? So.
Now, there are many members of HonkforKids that are filing their own federal lawsuits, and they're trying hard to stop these lawsuits from being filed. But right now, we're up to about $500 million. You all think about filing a federal lawsuit based on all the incompetence you've seen?
That's probably something else that I wouldn't want to address any more than political issues.
Sure.
I look at this. Jessica was my stepdaughter. Even her natural father, I think, would have more of a right. They are her parents. I look at that as more something that my wife is going to have to make decisions on. I support her in that, but my goal personally all along has been to expose this and get it done and to get the truth out and to go back to work. It would be nice. But do they deserve? Have they done things that I think should be compensated for? Absolutely. One thing we didn't, you're going to talk to Tabitha, I think, so I'll let you talk to her about that. But they tried to bribe her to not come home. But do I think she deserves a college education for 9 months of foster care? Yeah, I think she does. Should DCS pay for Caitlin's? Just because she's 11 doesn't mean she doesn't deserve compensation. Just because she's not ready to go to college, that doesn't mean they can't start a fund. That doesn't mean that they can't maybe pay up our utilities and catch up my mortgage, or help us put the yard, the fence around the yard, or get a tombstone for Jessica, which are the things we planned on doing with our last tax return, which had to be totally flushed into the legal system to pay for attorneys and everything else. So, yeah, I believe that they should compensate. They should own up for what they did, and they should take responsibility and be accountable, make restitution.
We're going to close this up now,
Okay.
but I need a statement from you both with your names. This is a true and accurate statement of your case and the date.
Roman Finnegan, and this is a true and accurate.
Accurate statement.
Accurate. I'm talking too fast. Accurate statement of our case.
And the date is?
The 26th of September.
Mrs. Finnegan, Linette Finnegan, the mother of Jessica.
Okay.
It's a clear and accurate statement.
Clear and accurate statement.
Okay.
I know I'm good on big words.
When we get everything ready to go up on the website, I'd like to put a picture of Jessica up there. Just
Well,
so people forget her.
I was willing to do that, but I didn't realize we got a file back there that our lawyer from Seattle blew up a picture where
But
it has all four
it's at the
kids.
apartment, it's not here, but,
I got a little.
We can do that.
one, but-
Sure.
We can do
You
that.
know, whatever we can do to help you, we'll be there for you.
okay,
May God bless you and keep you both.
thanks.